It has been a tumultuous couple of days for Tottenham Hotspur amid a COVID outbreak, and as always, a lot of transfer news. Today, we're going to be running through all of it. It's your one-stop shop for the updates on Tottenham in the last couple of days. If you are watching on the stream replay, I'm going to leave timestamps down in the description below so you can look at news for transfers in, transfers out, or youth team updates, and the latest on the COVID outbreak. So do go down and check that out if you are watching on the replay. If you are watching live, as always, welcome along. Please put your comments there in the live chat. We'll run through those throughout the stream as well. Cody Mack, good to see you there. Says, when was the last time Tottenham just had a normal month of operation? It's been a while. Cody. But like I said, we're going to run through everything that you need to know about this. And we're going to start with the transfers in. But before we do that, if you are new to the channel, please do make sure to hit that subscribe button for more of these streams throughout December and all throughout January as well, as we keep up with what is bound to be an action-packed time for Tottenham. And we're going to start with a rumour that we always get, and one that I don't think will stop unless he returns to the club again. Only time will tell if that is going to happen, and that is Gareth Bale. And Super Deporte are reporting that Real Madrid have no intention of extending Gareth Bale's contract. He leaves the club at the end of this season with his contract running out. The team most interested in signing him, according to Super Deporte, is Tottenham Hotspur. The transfer will depend on Antonio Conte's decision. Ekram Koner as well, who I would struggle to class as a journalist given what he reports, says Gareth Bale could make another sensational return with Antonio Conte happy for the Welshman to return, and the Spurs board in agreement. The deal would be a free transfer from Real Madrid. And look, like I said, this is one that we just get all the time anyway. I don't think there's too much to actually look into this, because we're going to hear it all throughout January, and we're going to hear it all throughout the summer as well, whether it happens or not. So let's bide our time on this one, but I wouldn't be in any way opposed to this happening. You know, you can look at the lack of game time that Gareth Bale got on the pitch last season for Tottenham, but when he did get on the pitch, especially in the second half of that season as he got back to match fitness, he was absolutely fantastic and a key player for us in the latter stages of the season. Best goals per minute ratio in the Premier League, or minutes per goal ratio, towards the end of the season, which is of course always a good thing to see. Farhan, good to see you in the live chat, says, hey man, it's been a while since I've been able to participate in a live stream of yours. Hope you're having a good day. I'm having a good day, busy day, but a good day nonetheless, and I hope you are as well, Farhan. Good to see you in the live chat again. The next name, one with a bit more substance to it, is the Torino centre-back Bremer. Torino Granata, who I assume are, you know, the kind of football.London for Torino. Craig, good to see you. Says Tottenham are now leading the interest to sign 24-year-old Torino centre-back Bremer. Spurs are willing to offer more than anyone else and will be prepared to pay more than €20 million to secure a deal. Calcio Mercato are also saying Fabio Paratici intends for Tottenham to sign Gleison Bremer. Torino are open to selling the centre-back this summer and would set the price at about €25 million. Now I have a tweet linked down in the description, which I'd recommend everyone goes to check out, maybe after the stream, stick around for a while, from Kevin Randawa on Twitter, also known as THFC Contatici. Some incredible threads there on that Twitter page. Like I said, link in the description if you do want to go and follow him there. I would advise you to. Saying on Bremer, he's 24 years old, affordable, transfermarkt with his price at about £13.5 million. He said he's comfortable on the ball and spraying passes from the back. Strong in the air, can play left centre-back, right centre-back, or centrally. He plays in a back three with Torino. He's physically dominant and one of the top centre-backs in the Serie A. And look, the attributes of that player there is the attributes of a centre-back that Tottenham really need to bring in at the moment, and have done for a while, but perhaps failed to do. Look, I don't know too much about the player tactically and from a kind of career history standpoint. I can say he played 15 games, or has played 15 games for Torino this season with 2 goals and 1 assist, so chipping in at the other end as well. He's played 93% of their minutes. Torino are currently struggling in this area in 13th place at the moment. However, they've only conceded 17 goals, which is the best outside the top 5. So 17 goals in 16 games conceded. They've only scored 20, so perhaps their struggles are at the other end of the pitch. But the best defence outside the top 5, and they're sitting in 13th. So you'd have to imagine Bremer playing 93% of their minutes, starting 94% of their games, does have a bit of a part to play in that incredible record. And there's Kevin in the live chat. Good to see you as always, Kevin. Daniel says, judging by Conte's reaction, the situation is getting out of control. We call off the next 2 games for the safety of all players involved. Yeah, look, I have very strong opinions on that. I will be touching on that a little bit later in the stream, but thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the comment as well, Daniel. But yeah, look, that's it on Bremer. There's nothing with a lot of substance in there, but there is a few reports coming out of Italy, and you can definitely say he fits into that demographic and that calibre of player that Tottenham will be looking to bring in, I suppose, to replace Romero immediately, but then hopefully in the longer term to play alongside him in that back three at Spurs. Another centre-back that is being mentioned is Antonio Rudiger. I'm not going to go in deep on this one because I don't think it's going to happen, but it does look as though there's a real possibility for him to leave Chelsea. And Eurosport have said that Tottenham are putting forward a strong proposal for Chelsea defender Antonio Rudiger. Some sources close to the situation believe it is almost certain he will now leave Chelsea. And there's two very different things to look at there. Him leaving Chelsea and him joining Tottenham. I think one is certain and one is very, very unlikely. But the name is being mentioned. And it has been since last summer, to be honest. And again, a time when I didn't really think that deal would go ahead. Ousmane Dembele is a player that was linked quite a bit last week. On a more general front, Fabrizio Romano has said that several calls have come from the Premier League to Ousmane Dembele's agent. He hasn't mentioned any clubs that are in there, or hasn't mentioned if Tottenham aren't one of those clubs. Now, reports out of Spain in the last week have been heavily linking Tottenham for a move for the French winger. Sport have said that Tottenham have now met with the agents of Ousmane Dembele. Barcelona are aware of this, with the forward set to leave the Spanish club at the end of the season. Dembele was signed for Barcelona from Borussia Dortmund a couple of years back for €132 million, but he's had an injury-riddled campaign there. He's on and off. He's played 2 games this season. He played 30 last season, but then only 5 the season before, and he's really struggled to become any bit of a fixture in that team. Super Deporte also saying that Tottenham have taken a new step towards signing Barcelona's Ousmane Dembele via Director of Football Fabio Paratici. Mundo Deportivo are saying that Tottenham are very interested in signing Dembele as a free agent in the summer. Spurs have made the winger a very attractive offer, which is tempting him, and Fernando Polo has said that Tottenham are the latest club that has approached Dembele with a lot of money and promising him to be a key player in the future project at Spurs. And look, there's interest there. I think it's just safe to say with the sheer amount of reports that are coming out, again, mainly almost completely from Spain, but there's no smoke without fire. When it's coming out from all these sources, you have to imagine Tottenham are keeping an eye on the situation. I don't think any Spurs fan can look at this and question Ousmane Dembele's talent. It is there. He was an incredible player that burst onto the scene at Borussia Dortmund a few years back, and you can question the fee that Barcelona paid for him, but you can't question why they would go out and buy him, because he was just on incredible form, and it was only a matter of time before one of the big teams in Europe picked him up. It's just been unfortunate that with his injury history and with the nature of that medical team at Barcelona, that it just hasn't quite worked out for him yet. When he does play, he does tend to impress, but he just can't stay in that pitch for too long. And there's been so many instances where he's had a long-term injury and he's come back and immediately got injured again. And I think that's the last thing Tottenham need at the moment. We've only just gotten rid of a right winger who has those concerns in Eric Lamela. So I don't see the point in getting rid of Lamela, who offered a lot in a different way. I'd say he would have been the perfect player to play against Mora a couple of weeks ago. And then bring in Dembele, who's a player who's so reliant on being at the peak of his physical fitness with his pace and with his agility. I don't think it's a risk that is worth taking for Tottenham. But a lot of fans disagree with me on that one. So let me know your thoughts on that in the comments. And we'll run through a few of those a little bit later. But I'm not entirely convinced on Ousmane Dembele just yet. Farhan on Bale says, as much as I love Bale, he'll be on incredibly high wages. I'd rather offer those wages to try and lure Rudiger on a free. SOF says, it was cool having Bale last season, but I wouldn't bring him back. And also says Spurs don't need another injury-prone player. And as Cody says, please do smash a like for Matt. It would be greatly appreciated. A few more players that we're being linked to. I'm just going to run through some reports very quickly. Calcio Mercato say that Antonio Conte's Tottenham are front-runners in the hunt for Norwich defender Max Aarons, with Everton and Roma also interested. The Sun say that Everton are keen on selling Jordan Pickford. Tottenham are interested in the goalkeeper and are willing to match his current £100,000 a week contract. Now, I don't know what I'm more concerned about there, the fact that Everton are paying £100,000 a week for Pickford, or the fact that someone thinks Tottenham will be willing to do the same. Definitely take that with a massive pinch of salt. Nicolo Zaniolo, Calcio Mercato say that Tottenham could scare Roma with the January offer for Nicolo Zaniolo. The Italian club and the midfielder's representatives have stalled in talks regarding a new contract, and that's been known for a couple of weeks, if not a couple of months. Jose Mourinho's Roma not quite able to get that over the line, with Zaniolo putting pen to paper. Gazzetta dello Sport also say that Antonio Conte is a big Nicolo Zaniolo fan and wants the player in his Tottenham squad. A summer move is more likely than in the January window. AS Roma value the player at €70 million, and look, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a player who, in a similar way to Ousmane Dembele, has had a bad injury history. Now, with Dembele's, it's a matter of frequency, but with Zaniolo, it's a matter of severity, and he suffered 2 ACL injuries in the last couple of years. And I think for €70 million, it's an easy one to stay away from. If the price does come down, I think questions do have to be asked then, because he's an incredibly talented player and one that I think would fit very well into an Antonio Conte system. But at the moment, I think Roma are making our minds up for us by asking for that high price. Calcio Mercato also say that Tottenham have opened preliminary talks to sign Juventus forward Dejan Kulusevski, but only on loan with an option to buy. And Corriere dello Sport say that Dejan Kulusevski is liked by both Spurs and Arsenal. The winger is on the list of players who can leave Juventus in January. And we analysed this transfer on the channel a couple of weeks ago with Alex, the Euro expert. So do go and check that out if you want a bit more on Dejan Kulusevski. Inter Live say that Tottenham are now the most likely destination for Ivan Perisic. The player's priority is to join Spurs on a free transfer and reunite with Antonio Conte. And finally, Corriere dello Sport say that Spurs seem to be slipping away in the race to sign Dusan Vlahovic. Man City are now gathering more information about the striker. Now, there's a lot of reports there. There's a lot of links. The volume is definitely a lot more than the reliability within those, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of those players do turn out to be quite heavy targets for Tottenham this January and moving into the summer window as well. But in terms of actually paying attention to those as legitimate transfer targets right now, I wouldn't be putting too much energy into that one. A few other bits. Football Insider has said that Fabio Paratici is preparing for the biggest January transfer window in the club's history. Conte is pushing for multiple new signings, meaning in excess of 10 incoming and outgoing transfers combined. If that happens, I don't know what I do. The likelihood of that is probably none. I wouldn't even say next to none. 10 transfers in a January window is unheard of, and he will earn the title of Don Fabio if he manages to get that over the line, but I won't be holding my breath. Ebola in Portugal are saying that Tottenham had scouts in the stand to watch Benfica's clash with Sporting Lisbon last week, so maybe linked with a lot of Sporting Lisbon players over the summer. João Palhinha, the midfielder, being one of those. We'll have to keep an eye on and see if those links resurface over the coming weeks. But that's it in terms of transfers in. A few comments there. Kane the Longshot says, other than injuries, Ousmane Dembele is said to have attitude problems, both in Barca and Dortmund. We have one attitudinal Frenchman too many. SOF says, Lamptey over Aarons for me. Lamptey and Reguilon would be a great wing-back duo in Conte's system. And Farhan says, I'd stay clear of Vlahovic. Someone like Julian Alvarez might help us add more balance to our attack. And on Alvarez, we analysed that transfer in the video with Alex a couple of weeks ago as well, so do check that one out. Neil says, Matt, what players can actually play tomorrow? And that is a very good question, Neil. We're not entirely clear on that one, but we will be diving more into the COVID outbreak a little bit later in the stream. Transfers out, players of the club more so. We start with Hugo Lloris, who is looking less likely to be a transfer out this summer. Alistair Gold has said that Antonio Conte was immediately impressed by Hugo Lloris and rates him very highly. The Italian manager is making it clear that he wants the goalkeeper to sign a new deal. Of course, Lloris's current contract will end at the end of the season, with talk in the last couple of months that he may be looking for a move to the MLS. Gold continues to say the Spurs are understood to be hopeful that the Conte effect will convince Lloris to remain beyond next summer. Fabrizio Romano has said on the Here We Go podcast that Tottenham are thinking of opening talks with captain Hugo Lloris over extension of his contract. L'Equipe say that Hugo Lloris wants to stay with Tottenham Hotspur but is yet to receive an official offer. Conte, meanwhile, wants the keeper to stay and intends to keep him at the centre of his plans. And Charlie Eccleshare says Lloris is in talks with Spurs over a new deal and the club are quietly confident of reaching an agreement. And this one, I think, is very heavily leading towards Lloris signing a new deal at the club before the end of the season. It's not going to be long term. Let's be realistic, 2-3 years maximum. I know goalkeepers, of course, have that more longevity in their career, and it's the reason that we're offering Lloris that contract, in my opinion. I wouldn't be surprised if over the summer the plan was for Galini, and I said this over the summer, the plan for Galini to come in, kind of be a fringe player this season, slowly working his way into the team, and then taking over that number one spot from Lloris next season. But I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon of saying we need to sell Galini. We need, he's just not good enough. I think there is potential there, and he just he hasn't really had the chance to show that yet. But I don't think he's shown enough for us to confidently say, as we come into the midway point of the season, that we can let Lloris go at the end of the year, and focus on Galini. And the situation with that contract, essentially, it would be better for us to have an agreement in place with Lloris before January, because once we hit that turn of the year under the Bosman ruling, Hugo Lloris will be allowed to negotiate with European clubs, signing a pre-contract to move on the 1st July 2022, and losing him on a free is the last thing we need. So let's get that deal over the line, even get a verbal agreement or gentleman's agreement, as Daniel Levy loves, before the new year. Pete from the Lane says, big up Matt, which 3 players do you think are realistic signings for January? It's so hard to tell. It is really hard to tell at the moment what players are the realistic signings, because we don't really know the realistic targets that Antonio Conte and Fabio Paratici would be going for. What I will say is I will be very surprised if Dusan Vlahovic or Frank Kezia, if either of them join Tottenham in the January window. Kane the Longshot says, give Lloris a 2-year deal with an option to extend and give him big money. I would absolutely agree with that. On to Joe Rodon, and some people may have seen his brother asking a lot of people on Twitter if they know him. But there are a lot of links with Joe Rodon potentially leaving Tottenham in the January window. The Daily Mail say the Tottenham defender Joe Rodon is an option for Newcastle United, and the Time Sport are saying Brighton and Hove Albion are interested in signing Tottenham defender Joe Rodon. In the same piece, they go on to say that Stephen Bergwijn, Dele Alli, Tanguy Ndombele and Rodon are among the list of Tottenham players who would leave this January. Ekram Koner says Newcastle United and West Ham want to sign Joe Rodon on loan, and Football Insider say Joe Rodon 100% wants a loan or permanent transfer away from Tottenham in January. And the Spurs Web tweeted that, as they do on their page on Twitter, and Joe's brother Sam just replied and said, "Know him, do you?" Essentially saying this isn't true, and that doesn't really surprise me from Football Insider. But again, no smoke without fire. A lot of links there with Joe Rodon, and it wouldn't surprise me if these links are coming from other teams looking at him not getting much game time at Tottenham and kind of growing their interest from there, rather than Joe Rodon actually vocally wanting to leave Tottenham or in any way wanting to leave Tottenham, because he's not getting a lot of game time. Fair enough. You'd understand if he wasn't particularly happy, but with the new manager coming in with this injury to Christian Romero, and we're already starting to see a player like Ben Davies, for example, who was nowhere near that squad, all of a sudden starting every single game under the new manager. So I think Joe Rodon might try and take this opportunity to prove himself, but a loan move wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. You could maybe say it would harm our depth a little bit if we're out of the Conference League tomorrow, depending on what happens. Is that so much of a concern? But I would be happy with whatever happened with Rodon if we kept him as an option, or if we did send him out on loan to get some game time. If we sold him permanently, that's a different conversation. I don't really think I want that to happen. But keeping him or loaning him, I'm happy with either at the moment. A player who's looking increasingly likely to leave the club is Stephen Bergwijn, and Fabrizio Romano has said that Stephen Bergwijn could be one of the players to leave Tottenham in January. He has lots of clubs interested in signing him. His departure is down to if Antonio Conte wants to keep the player, and Conte has spoken about the plans he has for Stephen Bergwijn in terms of having him as a backup option to that front two of Harry Kane and Heung-min Son, and he's stayed true to that word, with Bergwijn coming on in that position for the latter stages of our last two Premier League games against Brentford and Norwich. We don't know who was tested positive within Tottenham. Maybe over the next couple of weeks, if our games aren't postponed, there's a chance there for Bergwijn to prove himself. But it hasn't really worked out for him, and I wouldn't be sad to see him go, which is unfortunate because I really wanted to see him succeed at Tottenham, and he was a player I was really excited about when we signed him, and he's such a good start with that debut winner against Manchester City. But I feel like for the money we get for him and the money we're paying him, there's probably better options out there to have in that rotational position. Mike Verve, I'm probably butchering that name, and Voetbal International, both Dutch sources, have said that Ajax have officially reported their interest to Tottenham Hotspur for Stephen Bergwijn. Time Sport, of course, as we mentioned above, say that Stephen Bergwijn could leave Tottenham. They say it may be a loan deal instead of permanent. Erik ten Hag, the Ajax manager, has actually spoken on the Bergwijn situation. He said, "We want to improve. If there is an option for that, we will investigate it. Whether we also investigate Bergwijn's situation, we investigate everything. We are professionals." So typical manager answer, they're not giving anything away, but saying it would be remiss of them to not investigate that Bergwijn situation. A player who, of course, made a name for himself and was so successful on an individual basis in the Eredivisie with PSV Eindhoven. I think he'd do well at Ajax, and they're looking to maybe move David Neres on this January. Bergwijn is a ready-made replacement. I think of all the moves we're talking about today, that is probably the most realistic and one to keep an eye on the most. Two other smaller stories. Football Insider have said that Juventus are interested in signing Tottenham midfielder Tanguy Ndombele ahead of the January transfer window. And The Telegraph has said that Newcastle United are interested in signing Spurs midfielder Harry Winks in January. I know there's a lot of fans who would be happy to see both of those move on. I don't think we can afford that in terms of depth. But I think both potentially options for Antonio Conte moving forward. We're going to go on to a few updates in the youth team, including a confirmed signing, and after that we're going to jump into that the news of that COVID outbreak, as Jonathan Mills there says 16 positive cases, which does seem to be where we are at the moment. But we look at the youth team. Tottenham have completed the signing of 17-year-old left-back Charlie Sayers from Southend United. They said in a statement yesterday that we are pleased to confirm that young defender Charlie Sayers has joined our academy from Southend United. Charlie comes to us as a second-year under-18s player, joining our scholarship programme from the National League club. Sayers himself took to Instagram to say, "It's a proud moment for me to sign for such a great club." At Spurs Official, the hard work continues. Big thank you to the players, staff and fans at Southend United for the time I was there. His coach as well, Kevin Maher at Southend, has spoken about the player, and he says he broke into the team this season, and to play at 17 in a really tough league shows a lot of character. He's got a mature head in him for his young age, and hopefully he can take that forward. Tottenham is a brilliant football club, and they've got some really good people there that I know well. He'd be looked after and coached very well, and it's up to him now to take the opportunity. And look, the bit about Tottenham there, I couldn't agree with more. So I suppose he knows what he's talking about with Charlie Sayers as well. But look, I can't say no too much about the player. You know, Southend relegated last year down in the National League in a very poor situation with the club. Protests from the fans, the owners are hated. But Sayers has been a shining light in what has been a difficult season for them. And when you're looking at Paratici's history in terms of signing young players, he has a damn good eye for these young players. And I remember reading a piece on him that was saying with the fact that Paratici played the majority of his footballing career at a lower league level, it was then that he kind of developed that keen eye for players in lower leagues and how to identify that talent. And I certainly think he has identified one of those talents in Charlie Sayers, who I was speaking to Lily White Rose, a lot of you may know on Twitter, when Sayers made his debut on the 27th of November, and he was saying he could be a replacement for Dennis Serkin, who has of course moved on to Sunderland over the summer. Sayers has made 6 appearances for Southend in the National League this season, including 4 starts, and like I mentioned there, made his debut for Tottenham Under-18s against Fulham on the 27th of November, and the move was made official yesterday. So an exciting move for the academy, and a player that I look forward to seeing develop at Tottenham. Onto a few other players. All Nigerian Soccer are saying that Tottenham youngster Toby Amole has been offered a new contract, and negotiations over a contract renewal are at an advanced stage. Amole will enter the final 6 months of his contract with the North London club in January. Janeel Bennett, who was on loan at Crewe Alexandra for the beginning of the season, has officially returned to Tottenham. Within that Sayers transfer announcement, Spurs said, "We can also confirm that Janeel Bennett has returned to the club for treatment on an ankle injury sustained while on loan at Crewe Alexandra, where he made 11 appearances in all competitions." Jamie Donnelly, another academy player, has undergone surgery for an injury he picked up in that same game against Fulham on the 27th of November. He put up in his Instagram story yesterday just a picture of him in his hospital bed with a lot of strapping around that ankle, and said surgery was a success. He underwent surgery, I think it was for a ligament injury. I remember seeing that somewhere, but I can't find it again, so I'm not entirely sure on that one. But I do think it was a ligament injury that he was getting that treatment for. And finally, Spurs also confirmed officially that third-year scholar Jeremy Kizu has left the club by mutual agreement. So a lot going on in the academy this week, and that's your roundup on that one. And now we get to the worrying news for Spurs. And we saw Antonio Conte in his press conference earlier today looking very emotional and seemed to be fighting back the tears at one stage, talking about the COVID outbreak at Spurs. And the latest update on this one, about an hour before we went live, The Athletic have said that non-football staff have been instructed to stay away from the training ground at Hotspur Way. Tottenham already have stringent safety protocols in place, and sanitisation practices have now also been ramped up. As Jonathan says there in the live chat, it is believed there are 16 positive cases at Tottenham at the moment. 8 of those are the first team playing staff, 5 of those are first team coaching staff, and the other 3 are believed to be in the under-23s. Now, Antonio Conte confirmed the 8 and 5 earlier, but regards to the 3, that is just reports at the moment. There are also whispers out there about who these players are. Well, I don't think it's really fair to speculate on who those may be. So we're not going to do that, but we're going to look at what we do know about this situation. And what we do know is that Dan Kilpatrick has said, as it stands, Tottenham versus Stade Rennes will still go ahead in the UEFA Conference League tomorrow, but UEFA are closely monitoring the situation. He has said, while the affected players haven't been named, it is understood that some of Conte's most important and informed players are those who have tested positive. Now, with regards to this game going ahead, this graphic is circulating around social media this evening. To care is to do, as Tottenham fans called for this game to be called off. With, like I said, 16 positive cases within that camp. It seems a simple decision for UEFA to call it off, but as we stand at the moment, this game will be going ahead. Alistair Gold and Kilpatrick as well have said Tottenham have 11 registered first team players available. It is believed one of those is a goalkeeper, so 10 outfield players and 1 goalkeeper. The UEFA guidelines are, if you have 13 players, including a goalkeeper, available for the game, you are obliged to fulfil that fixture. Now, for me, the uncertainty there lies around whether that is first team playing staff, first team players who are registered to the competition, or whether or not that includes youth players. We're going to look at a second the players who are available and the full list of players who trained today. But by that rule, it looks to me as though this game, Tottenham have the right to call this game off. Fans calling for them to forfeit the game if it's not called off for safety reasons. And I assume there's a kind of underlying motivation of just getting out of that competition as well there. But safety first. I put that poll into the chat a while ago, and I will go and grab the final results of that. I've accidentally closed it on my side here. So I said, should the game be called off tomorrow? Or should the games against Stade Rennais and Brighton be called off? We've had 74 votes, and 72% of you have said yes. I'm getting a lot more votes in now, but it's about 70% have said yes, 15% have said no, and the rest, 13% at the moment, saying it depends on the rules, which is, I think very fair. It depends on the specific rules for the competition, because we don't want to get special treatment in the situation, you know. Iggy, good to see you in the live chat. Sorry, I missed your comment there. Kirst says both games should be called off. I completely agree with. Says good to see you back. Thank you, Kirst. Good to see you in the live chat as always. Alexander as well. Good to see you there. And Niall says hit the likes, people. Do hit that like button. So with all these 8 positive cases within the first team, we're going to look at injury updates. Dane Scarlett and Giovanni Lo Celso both returned to training today. Untitled Patrick has said while Lo Celso is deemed fit to play, he may not yet be ready to start. Sergio Reguilon, who went off injured against Norwich on Sunday, was not seen in training. Sessegnon, a player who was, is suspended for that game. So we're looking at 3, maybe 4 players there who, while they were training or have not tested positive, may not be available for that game. A couple of youth players did take part in training. They are Harvey White, Jack Clark, Dane Scarlett, Toby Amole and Callum Cisse. So that means the full list of players who trained for Tottenham this morning is as follows. 3 goalkeepers in Hugo Lloris, Pierluigi Gallini and Brandon Austin. Defensively, we had Matt Doherty, Joe Rodon, Davinson Sanchez, Eric Dyer, Japhet Tanganga, Ryan Sessegnon, Toby Amole, Callum Cisse, Malachy Fagan Walcott and Brooklyn Lions Foster. In the midfield, we had Dele Alli, Giovanni Lo Celso, Harry Winks, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, Tanguy Ndombele, Niall John and Harvey White. And the attackers are Dane Scarlett, Harry Kane, Jack Clark, Stephen Bergwijn and Dylan Marconde. So, of those players, which I haven't counted up, but of those players, we know for a fact that one has tested positive. So Antonio Conte said in his press conference today that they trained this morning, and one player who did train this morning, at the end of training, was told that he had tested positive for COVID-19. Again, you can look at the reports that are there and the confirmation we got, and you can narrow it down to 2 players that it may be, but we're not going to speculate about that at the moment. But we know one of those players has tested positive, so it is 11 first team players are fit, eligible, and have tested negative for this game going into tomorrow. Call it off, UEFA. It's as simple as that. Just call it off. But it doesn't look like they're going to make that decision just yet. Alexander Hilton says, can Sayers start? I don't think so. I think for players playing in the group stage of the Conference League, you would have to have been registered in the squad before the group stage started. Please someone correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I do think that is the case. I don't think Sayers can play. Paul, good to see you as well, my friend. Junior as well, nice to see you in the live chat. Antonio Conte, like I mentioned, was very emotional in his press conference this afternoon. We have a few quotes here from him. Factually, he said 8 players and 5 members of staff had tested positive, but the problem is that every day we're having people with COVID, people that yesterday weren't positive and today are, and we're continuing to have contact with. It's a serious problem. With regards to preparations for the game tomorrow, he said we had 11 players available for the match, and by the end of the training session today, one of the players who would start tomorrow is now positive. It's scary. We're all having contact. He continually reiterated that. Everyone is... Greg, thanks so much for subscribing. He said people are in contact with these players who are going on a testing positive 24 hours later. You know, if this is an outbreak, well, this is an outbreak, but in any outbreak, it's not going to stop if you keep putting these people in contact with each other. Like, of those, say there's 20 players who trained today, 19 tested negative. Because of that one who tested positive, well, there's a chance that one is going to test positive tomorrow, and it's that continuous knock-on effect. It's simple. It's the reason the world went into lockdown. I don't know why Tottenham are continuing to go to training. Like we said from The Athletic, the latest report is that all non-playing staff have been instructed to stay away from Hotspur Way, but the playing staff are still going there. They're still training, and it is rather ridiculous. Antonio Conte also said the situation is serious. There is a big infection, and now for sure we're a bit scared because we don't know what is going to happen. Everyone is a bit scared. We all have families. I ask why. Yesterday we trained and 2 positives. Today we trained after another 2 positives. 1 playing staff, 1 coaching staff, as we found out. He said, who next? It's not right. We're going home to our families. And Conte getting very emotional, having to fight back the tears at one point. Clearly very worried about this situation. With regards to some of the questions he was being asked, he was asked about a question on the potential for football to be stopped again. Ridiculous question to ask him. He has no idea. He's not in any decision making kind of job. He's also asked which variant was responsible for the outbreak. A ridiculous question, and it's something we've seen the whole way through this entire thing is journalists asking managers and players what they think should happen, and kind of asking them for facts. And just because these players and managers are in the public eye, they think, well, they should be asked about everything. They really shouldn't, because they don't know these things, and they have this effect. They have this kind of role model status. They have an influence on what people think. So asking these people stuff that they're not educated on is just going to continue the misinformation that's going out there. I thought it was absolutely bizarre that they were asking Antonio Conte these questions. Jonathan says, Matt, if I subscribe, are you going to continue doing this? I am a fan. This is what we do on the channel, Jonathan. This is the main attraction, I think, to people who do subscribe. So please do hit that subscribe button. We will be continuing this all throughout December and January. The final question I was concerned that Conte was asked, he was asked about the vaccination status of the players. Something he can't disclose, something that he probably doesn't have the information to hand on, but he did confirm that he himself was vaccinated. With regards to the game on Sunday, Arthur, absolute legend. Good to see you in the live chat, my friend. With regards to the game on Sunday, Brighton against Spurs, The Athletic have said that the Premier League has been asked to postpone Brighton versus Tottenham Hotspur this Sunday. Simon Stone says it's currently under review by the Premier League. Dan Kilpatrick said earlier this afternoon that Tottenham are set to ask for the postponement. And DiMarzio has said that the Premier League has now been asked to postpone that game. And whether it's happened already or whether it's about to happen, it will happen. That Tottenham will request for that game to be called off. The rules for the Premier League seem to be a little bit different to the rules for the Conference League, which is why I put the distinction there in that poll earlier on. The 13 player rule isn't there for the Premier League. And, we've seen, for example, our game against Fulham last season at Craven Cottage, they had 6 positive tests and that game was called off. 16 for Tottenham, 8 within that first team playing staff. It seems like a simple decision to postpone that game. And then if you're talking about fixture congestion for Tottenham later in the year, well, we already have that Burnley game to replay. Adding that Brighton one to the mixture is just going to add to the issues, but the immediate safety of these players has to be taken into consideration. I'm sure Brighton won't be too opposed to the game being called off either, because they have 8 first team injuries at the moment. So I just say, just put up that graphic again to the Premier League, to UEFA, just make the sensible decision, postpone these games. There's no benefit from this risk, and if they're not postponed, Spurs, I don't think many fans would be particularly aggrieved with you if you did forfeit these games. The safety has to be taken into utmost consideration and has to be the priority. And let's hope the sensible decision is made in both of these. Just to add as well at the end, as we found out last week, Tottenham will host Morecambe in the third round of the FA Cup at home. The date and time of that tie is to be confirmed. That is definitely the most action-packed stream I have ever done on a transfer stream on the channel. There's so much to get through there. And we did get through it somehow in, where are we at? We're at 33 minutes. Look, let me know in the comments if there's too much information there, if we should bring it down, if we spread these out over multiple streams. Give me that feedback and I'll try and bring the best content I possibly can to you on the channel over the next couple of months. If Tottenham do play tomorrow, we'll be live after the game with a quick reaction stream, an instant match reaction to that. I'm hoping we won't have to do that, and we think we'll be doing the same on Sunday after the Brighton game if that does go ahead. So do make sure to hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with the two of those. If we don't, I'm sure we'll have some sort of transfer stream or some sort of general discussion stream. Hopefully bringing a few guests on as well in the coming days and coming weeks. So please do hit that